My name is Lila. I met Gilbert at work and we got married after dating for a year. Now, I'm a stay-at-home mom living with our 3-year-old daughter, Arya. I'm in my late 30s, but thanks to my energetic Arya, I feel more physically fit than before. Honestly, that's what keeps me going these days. Ever since Arya started preschool, I've been on the receiving end of Natalie's harsh treatment. It's gotten so bad that I have to spend all my free time while Arya is at school at my in-laws' house. The issues began when Arya started preschool. Out of the blue, I got a message from Natalie telling me to come to my in-laws' house immediately. When I got there, she handed me a broom and said, "Let's start with the entrance." Stunned, I just stood there. Natalie glared at me and yelled, "What are you waiting for? Clean! Don't think you can take it easy just because Arya's in school. It's a wife's job to look after her husband's family home. I have been cutting you slack, but not anymore." After wrapping up the cleaning in the entrance, I was tasked with cleaning the hallway, toilets, and bathrooms. Then came meal preparations, tidying up, and even cleaning the storeroom and washing windows. I couldn't help but wonder why I had to do all of this. Natalie's overwhelming presence made it impossible to speak up. By the time I finished cleaning like a professional, it was time to pick up my kid from preschool. Exhausted and having skipped lunch, I left my in-laws' house. From then on, Natalie started summoning me regularly, piling on chores until the last possible minute before I had to leave to pick up my child. I started resenting that this was eating into quality time with Arya. I had, of course, talked to Gilbert about this the first time Natalie called me over. "Mom's right, I work hard for the family. You lazing around at home makes no sense," he said, laughing dismissively. Lately, I have felt that Gilbert is looking down on me. He doesn't involve himself in household matters or with Arya. "We can live because I'm earning money," he keeps telling me, ordering me around. Worst of all, he once smirked and said, "If you don't listen, I can cut down the living expenses, I have thought about divorce multiple times, but considering Arya, I couldn't take that step. I felt I had no right to separate Arya from her father, especially when I have no money to support us. My savings have dwindled because of wedding expenses, honeymoon, and the daily needs after becoming a housewife. I had no choice but to endure for Arya's sake. That's how I lived each day. However, a few weeks after I started being summoned to my in-laws' house, Olivia got married. In isolation, that sounds like good news. But because Olivia became a housewife, she started visiting my in-laws more frequently. She hadn't been fond of us marrying before her, and she directed her anger at me, not her younger brother Gilbert. Every time we met, she would lecture me for nearly an hour, or how I was lacking as Gilbert's wife, or how unattractive I was as a woman. I used to tolerate it by suppressing my feelings and just agreeing, but Olivia didn't seem pleased with that either. If I'm this submissive to Natalie, there is no way Olivia finds it amusing. As if handling Natalie's demands wasn't enough, Olivia joined in, treating me like a housekeeper on days when I finished cleaning my in-laws' house quickly. She even made me clean her house. "Lila, your hair looks like bed hair. Stop showing your ugly bare face and put on some makeup. If you keep this up, Gilbert will get fed up and go find another woman." After dropping off Arya and rushing to finish the errands, I arrived at my in-laws' house. Olivia was waiting to ambush me at the entrance. "If only you were having an affair, life would be so much easier," she said. I couldn't help but think how true that might be. My hair is pulled back in a messy bun while Olivia's is beautifully curled from root to tip. Her makeup is flawless and her nails are perfectly manicured. Her husband works at a top-tier company and it's evident that they live comfortably. When was the last time I went to a beauty salon? I can't even remember. I've been putting off getting a haircut for a long time. Neither time nor money has been on my side. On the days when Gilbert is away, I sometimes get called to my in-laws' house. They never kill me over when he's around, so Gilbert must be in on it. Each time I leave Arya with my parents and head over to my in-laws' place. I have become increasingly distant from the people around me, but I still keep in touch with Caitlin, a colleague from work. Caitlin has been my friend since before I started dating Gilbert, and she's always been a good listener. But I can't bring myself to talk to her about my current situation. So when I received a surprising message from her, I was momentarily stunned. Long time no see, just left a party, and Gilbert seems to be a great dad. He does the cleaning and laundry and is very involved in childcare. Not many husbands like that around, so cherish him. Let's catch up sometime. A good dad? Cleaning and laundry? Childcare? I was baffled. Was she talking about someone else? Before I knew it, I was calling Caitlin. Curiosity got the better of me, and I wasn't even thinking about the late hour or her convenience. Hi, it's unusual for you to call this late. Is Arya asleep? Hearing Caitlin's voice after so long was nostalgic, but that wasn't the last thing on my mind. What did you mean by that message? I got straight to the point. Huh? Is something wrong? Gilbert was bragging about it at the party. According to Caitlin, Gilbert had been boasting at the office party. During the week, I had come home to handle the cleaning and laundry, and weekends were for quality time with our daughter Arya. Gilbert used to help around the house when we first got married, but that changed once Arya was born. I have asked for his help multiple times, but he never lends a hand. In fact, he might have stopped helping long before Arya was even born. It's frustrating that Gilbert does nothing around the house. Is he really just lying just to get some praise? I feel foolish for enduring this. I am looked down upon by Gilbert, bossed around by Natalie and Olivia, and still I tolerate it. Overwhelmed by my feelings, I found myself tearing up while still on the phone with my friend Caitlin. What happened? Is everything okay? Startled by my sobbing, Caitlin immediately asked what was wrong. After hesitating for a moment, I decided to confide in her about Gilbert's attitude and the harassment from Natalie and Olivia. That sounds really tough, she said. Hearing those words, my tears flowed even more freely. Caitlin stayed on the line with me until I had calmed down. I'm always here if you need to talk, but seriously, what is he trying to achieve by lying? Anyway, it's getting late and you should get some sleep. Gilbert will be home soon, right? When I stopped crying, Caitlin said, "Take care," and hung up the phone. I realized an hour had gone by talking to her. I had a message from Gilbert saying, "The party's still going on, so feel free to go to sleep." Something felt off. Just like Caitlin said, why would he lie? Was it because he wanted praise? I couldn't really tell. That night, I couldn't sleep with all the thoughts going through my head. I woke up early than usual the next morning, and Gilbert still hadn't come home. My suspicions started to turn into certainties. Hey, sorry to call so early, but could you do me a favor? I called Caitlin and asked her something. 3 months had passed since then. Life was still the same, being bossed around by Natalie and Olivia like a housekeeper, but it didn't bother me as much. Freedom was just around the corner. Knowing that made things easier. Today, just as I suspected, Gilbert told me he would be late coming home from an anniversary party. Don't wait up for me," he said, eyes glued to his phone and wearing his favorite shirt. To that, I mastered the biggest smile I could and saw him off with, "Have a great time. It's your fault we are unprepared for Christmas since you didn't show up on Christmas Eve. Get the preparations done now." When I greeted Natalie with a "Merry Christmas," she yelled back without any niceties, "Don't forget the roast turkey. It's not Christmas if I don't eat that." Olivia snatched the Christmas cake I brought and headed to the dining room, followed by Gilbert. They opened a bottle of champagne and cheered "Merry Christmas." Despite Arya not being with us because she was at her grandparents', Natalie and Olivia didn't say a word. I guess they didn't care. "Make sure to clean really well today. I'll even be extra thorough to make up for you not being here." As if it's not bad enough that my husband is already stressed from work on Christmas, now he has to eat that terrible cake. Make sure you prepare dinner before you go too. Natalie and Olivia kept coming into the kitchen to make various demands. Still, I obediently said, "Okay, got it." Natalie looked a bit suspicious, but Olivia misguidingly said, "It's because it's Christmas," which almost made me laugh. By the time everything was done, it was almost evening. All three, who had been drinking since morning, were flushed. As soon as I said, "I'm done," my empty stomach growled. Nellie and Olivia burst into malicious laughter. "Once you're done cleaning and cooking, get out. There's no food here for you." Both of them said it in perfect unison as if they had practiced.
Sorry about them. Why don't you go home?"
Scratching his head, Gilbert pointed to the entrance with his chin. He probably thinks of me as nothing more than a housekeeper. I'll soon see you go through hell, so you might as well enjoy yourself now. Don't worry about it. With a big smile on my face, I left my in-laws' house. A few days later, I got a call. It was from Gilbert. I hadn't gone back home since Christmas and had been staying at my parents' with Arya. The message read,
"When are you coming back?"
but this wasn't the first time he actually called. Finally, the moment has come.
What the hell is going on?
Even through the phone, it was clear that Gilbert was furious. "What are you talking about? I can understand unless you explain." I feigned ignorance.
"It's about the documents that arrived. It says it's from a lawyer, but you set this up, didn't you? Quit messing around."
I responded coldly. "Any complaints about demanding compensation from a cheating husband?" Yes. What I had sent to Gilbert was a certified letter. I had gathered evidence with Caitlin's help and had a lawyer draft the documents. Ever since I received that call from Caitlin, I suspected Gilbert was having an affair. Throwing back, ever since I got pregnant with Arya, Gilbert had been coming home late, claiming it was due to overtime.
"I have to make money for the family,"
he would say. But I began to suspect that it might be an excuse to cover up his affair. I asked Caitlin to investigate whether Gilbert was actually working late on the days he claimed he was. Despite the inconvenience, Caitlin happily agreed and had been keeping tabs on him. My suspicions were confirmed. Gilbert was having an affair with a colleague. Probably the lie about being a family man who takes the lead in household chores was to appeal to his affair partner. That colleague seemed to openly wish for a husband like Gilbert. The photos sent by Caitlin were evidence enough, but I had also planted a voice recorder in Gilbert's bag during our anniversary party. Conversations with his colleague were clearly recorded, leaving him no room for excuses. On the other end of the phone, Gilbert was desperately trying to fabricate a story, but once I played the recording, he fell silent. By the way, I also filed a claim against her. She begged me to forgive her because we're breaking up, but no mercy here. Poor thing, looks like you were the only one serious about this. I added more salt to the wound, but it's not over yet. Can you let Natalie and Olivia know that they can mock me only until today?
What are you saying?
Hearing Natalie and Olivia's name, Gilbert seemed flustered. The recording has more. You can figure out what it is, right? I've gathered all the evidence. I'm sending Natalie and Olivia down with you. The rest of the recording revealed that Natalie and Olivia had been encouraging Gilbert's affair. Natalie and Olivia weren't just bossing me around. They were also helping Gilbert with his affair. They always summoned me to my in-laws' home on days when Gilbert was out just to keep me from going anywhere else. I reported their harassment and their role in Gilbert's affair to my father-in-law and Olivia's husband. My father-in-law, who's been working far away, should be arriving at the in-laws' place soon. As for Olivia, she's probably getting served with divorce papers right about now. When Gilbert called begging for forgiveness, I simply told him, "Talk to my lawyer from now on," and hung up. After that, I successfully secured the agreed-upon amount for damages, property distribution, and child support for Arya. Caitlin told me that Gilbert, now in debt, got unceremoniously dumped by his colleague he was having the affair with. Natalie and Olivia are both headed for divorce too, and apparently they're all living together now. Natalie, who's always been a housewife, Olivia, who's been living it up since she got married, and Gilbert, now drowning in debt. Even combined, their lives are a struggle. I have heard Nellie and Olivia had to get jobs to make ends meet. As for me, I moved back in with my parents and am living a much more relaxed life with them and Arya. Arya's grown close to my parents, and now I can finally use the time and energy I used to waste on Nellie and Olivia for myself and my home. I have got some breathing room, both mentally and physically. From now on, I'm planning to make the most of my time with Arya.
I was on cloud 9, having just married the love of my life. One day, a package arrived from my mother-in-law. I excitedly opened it, only to find a surprise of another kind. It sent my relationship with my husband spiraling into a nightmare. But I'll be damned if I let her win. I refuse to let things go her way. My name is Jessica. I married my husband David just 6 months ago. We're still newlyweds. We were planning on making many happy memories together, but then something unimaginable happened. I had no way of knowing what was about to happen. The trigger came a month after our wedding. I was cleaning the house, now a full-time homemaker, when the doorbell rang. It was a package for me. The sender? My mother-in-law. A package from my mother-in-law? I wonder what it is. I had received no notice of a package being sent, and David hadn't mentioned anything either. Curious, I opened the box. Inside, I found clothes, not exactly what you'd call fashionable, and very well worn. What? What are these? Old clothes? I was flabbergasted by the array of second-hand clothes. Some even had holes in them. There were clothes that must have been fashionable once, but now they were just garish. Just then, the phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. "Oh, Jessica, dear, did you get my gift?" Gift? No, no, no. What part of that is a gift? They're clearly old clothes, and they're hideous. How can anyone possibly see that as a gift? As I was bewildered by this unexpected situation, my mother-in-law started explaining casually. "You see, those clothes are ones I used to wear a long time ago. Found them when I was tidying up my closet." But mother-in-law, some of them have holes in them." "Don't worry, dear. I included some new ones I bought recently. Please try them on." Despite my confusion, my mother-in-law chattered away cheerfully. Was this harassment, or was it really just kindness? Honestly, I couldn't figure out my mother-in-law's true intentions. My husband David came home from work and immediately noticed the mountain of old clothes. "Did Mom just give you a gift? That's nice." It was more like she had given them away than given them. Even so, if it was really out of kindness for my mother-in-law, I didn't want to seem ungrateful, so I didn't mention the holes or the poor taste to David. A month later, another package arrived from my mother-in-law. As expected, it was filled entirely with second-hand clothes. The amount was incomparable to the last time. Plus, the designs were even worse than before. Ugh! Who would wear these? I felt bad for my mother-in-law, but this was nothing short of an unwelcome favor. They were just crowding my closet. I should give them away or sell them at a flea market. As I was thinking this, the phone rang. It was my mother-in-law again. "Oh, Jessica, did the clothes arrive? I gathered some really special pieces this time." My mother-in-law seemed overly cheerful. Even so, it would be problematic if she kept sending them regularly. They're old and not to my taste. "Mother-in-law, I appreciate your sentiment, but I don't usually wear such flashy clothes." When I indirectly refused, she suddenly got angry. Maybe my words had rubbed her the wrong way. "Excuse me, Jessica? What kind of things are you saying about the clothes I went out of my way to send? The correct response is, thank you. No, I mean I appreciate the thought, but... Just wear them, Jessica. Sending you all those clothes will surely save you some money, won't it? The next time you come over, make sure you're wearing the stuff I've given you, okay? My mother-in-law gave me a one-sided command and then hung up the phone. I sighed. I made her angry. What was more, I never knew that she was the type of person to force her opinions on others so vehemently. That night, I decided to gather up my courage and talk to my husband about it. David, do you have a minute?
Wait, you got more presents for my mom?
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about. David is still under the impression that I'm being sent presents that I would enjoy. When I explained the situation, his eyes widened.
Second-hand clothes?
Yes, second-hand clothes. And they're not my style at all. I can't possibly wear the clothes your mom sent. I tried to gently refuse over the phone and she got really upset. Can you talk to her, David? David stayed silent for a while. I was troubled because of the stuff his mom had sent. Surely he'd come up with a good solution to smooth things over between me and his mother.
I'll call Mom.
David walked out into the balcony and took out his smartphone. I hoped that he would be able to resolve this situation over the phone with his mom. But when he came back from his call, he said something outrageous.
Mom told me she was just trying to do something nice by sending you clothes. You make it sound like it's a nuisance. You should be more grateful.
I was baffled at David's words. Hold on a minute. I told you, right? I can't wear those clothes. They're not my style at all.
Mom said it's clothes she used to wear. Are you making fun of my mom's taste?
That's not what I meant. Besides, some of the clothes even have holes in them. Are you saying I should wear those?
Enough. Mom started crying when I told her you didn't like the clothes. Please don't upset her anymore.
After yelling at me, David stormed off into his own room, slamming the door behind him. Wait, what? Is it my fault? I never thought David would take his mom's side. Even if he didn't exactly take my side, he could at least try to understand my feelings. I felt as if I had been betrayed by my husband. Ultimately, another package from my mother-in-law arrived the following month. When I visited my in-laws' home, and it was discovered that I wasn't wearing the clothes she had sent, I went to all this trouble to send them to you. Why aren't you wearing them? She exploded.
Yeah, Mom went out of her way to send them to you.
David joined her side, against me.
No one really cares or notices what you're wearing. More importantly, it's absolutely the worst that you're wasting Mom's kindness like this.
It seemed David was completely on his mother's side. Do you even understand how I feel, being given tasteless old clothes, some even with holes, that are out of style? I felt everything was becoming absurd. All my effort not to spoil my relationship with my mother-in-law and all my explanations to my husband seemed to be in vain. And ignoring my feelings, David started treating me more like a housemaid than ever before.
What is this food? Are you skimping on it? You're lacking awareness as a wife. You're a full-time housewife, so you should do better. There are wrinkles in the laundry. My mother wouldn't make a mistake like this. Do it perfectly.
Is he, her, mini-me? He was becoming incredibly picky. When I bought new clothes, he yelled,
Even though you wasted Mom's kindness, you're buying new clothes?
Oh, I don't know if I can continue this married life any longer. I was pushed to the point where I started to think like that. Then one day, David's company's trip was confirmed.
Make sure you prepare for my company trip starting tomorrow.
I, who was treated almost like a housemaid recently, was naturally frustrated. However, upon thinking, this might be a chance for revenge. My mother-in-law was still sending me tasteless, worn-out clothes. From men's to children's items, even things that I had no idea what they are. Recently, she even started sending me clothes so dirty, I wondered where she picked them up. I dug out the men's clothes from there and stuffed them into David's travel bag. This should do. David's company trip was for 2 nights and 3 days. During this time, I stuffed all the rags that had been sent from my mother-in-law into his suitcase. The next day, as soon as David left for his trip, I began packing my things. When I left the house, I put divorce papers on the table that had already been filled out. At that same time, David, who was on his company trip, was being laughed at by his colleagues.
Hey, what's with those raggedy clothes, man? Did you pick them up from somewhere? Had a fight with your wife, didn't you?
Serves him right. I can picture David panicking. That night, as expected, David called me.
Hey, what's with the contents of this suitcase?
He was clearly furious, even over the phone. I held back laughter as I asked David, "Something wrong with your suitcase?"
What do you mean, something wrong? What's with these raggedy clothes? You got something wrong in your head? Making your husband wear such things?
You think I'm crazy? I said calmly. David, remember what you said, right? Those clothes were sent out of goodwill by your mom. Wasting such goodwill would be pretty strange for a son, wouldn't it? Apparently, David hadn't realized the clothes I packed were from his mother. At my revelation, he choked on his words. Hey, you listening? Those clothes were sent by your mom. Since you were all for blaming me alongside her, you'll be wearing them without complaint, right?
Well, that's...
David was utterly flustered. I told him outright. You understand now, right? Did you finally get a feel for what I was going through? I left the divorce papers at home.
Divorce?
I'll leave the rest to you. And with that, I hung up, leaving things unsaid. David bombarded me with calls and emails, all of which I ignored. Afterwards, I returned to my parents' house. A few days later, my mother-in-law called me. You listen here. You can't get divorced without my approval. If you don't listen, I'll hire a lawyer and sue you for emotional distress. I responded, feel free to do so. A week later, my mother-in-law told me to come to a meeting with a lawyer. I headed to the specified coffee shop. There, my mother-in-law, husband, and someone who seemed to be a lawyer were waiting. What's this? I've already decided on the divorce, so there's nothing to talk about now. With a look like she was about to bite me, my mother-in-law yelled. Don't mess around. After all we've done for you, we won't allow a selfish divorce.
Exactly.
My husband chimed in with her.
I've been made a laughingstock at work because of the clothes you made me wear. Now everyone at work is laughing at me.
A laughingstock? Isn't that directly mocking his own mother's taste in clothes? As I laughed in front of them, my mother-in-law glared with her eyes wide open. What's so funny? You're such a cheeky wife. She then turned to the lawyer. Hey, Mr. Lawyer, she can't possibly request a divorce from her position, can she?
I was told that the wife was the one causing the trouble.
The lawyer questioned, looking puzzled. To this I clearly stated. No, it's the other way around. I'm the one who's been harassed by my mother-in-law and husband, being sent clothes like garbage every single month. Upon hearing this, the lawyer seemed perplexed.
This is completely different from what I was told.
My mother-in-law also seemed flustered. Impatient with their reactions, my husband abruptly stood up.
That's it. I'm divorcing a useless wife like you. I'm going to demand a full emotional distress compensation.
He yelled at me. At the sound of his voice, all the customers turned to look at us. Taking advantage of this, I asked, So, does this mean I have to pay emotional distress compensation? Wait, who exactly are you talking to? Who? The person behind me. Huh? I kindly clarified that to my puzzled mother-in-law. Just then, a figure from the back of the room appeared before us. David and my mother-in-law were taken aback, their mouths agape with surprise.
It's been a while, Mom. David?
The person who appeared was David's brother, Sam.
What, Sam? Why are you here? Why am I here? Well, to defend Jessica, of course.
That's right. Sam, David's older brother, is a renowned attorney specializing in divorce. Initially, my mother-in-law sought his counsel, but when it became apparent that I was the one wronged, he chose to defend me. Wait a minute, Sam. Why? I asked you to defend me, and you declined.
Of course I did.
Sam raised his voice.
Because it's clear to me that Jessica isn't at fault. And having heard her side of the story, I learned that you've been using the money I've been sending home every month under the pretense of hard times to torment Jessica, haven't you?
That is. Indeed, my mother-in-law had been receiving money from Sam every month. Surely some of it was used for living expenses, but she was using the excess to buy shoddy clothes to send to me. All for the purpose of tormenting me. Sam, in a short time, had researched these facts and saved the evidence.
And you, David, the verbal abuse you hurled at Jessica earlier, it's all been recorded.
Sam pulled out a voice recorder and played back the harsh words David had shouted earlier. Of course, this too will serve as substantial evidence in the divorce proceedings.
Hey, Sam, you're kidding, right? Why would you side with Jessica instead of your own family?
In response to David's outburst, Sam answered firmly.
I'm a lawyer. No matter how you look at it, the fault lies with you two. Your lawyer also seems to see that there's no hope of winning. Maybe he should decline to represent you.
At Sam's words, David's lawyer nodded in agreement and quietly left the cafe.
So you two will be the ones paying the alimony. And Mom, I won't be sending any more money. Understand?
Leaving these words behind, Sam left the cafe with me. Thank you, Sam, for helping me even though you're busy. As I bowed my head, Sam gave me a warm smile.
No worries. I just can't stand injustice, family or not.
I'm really grateful for your help this time. Thank you so much. And so, thanks to Sam, I was able to divorce peacefully. Of course, I received a substantial alimony from my mother-in-law and David. After the divorce, I haven't heard from my mother-in-law or David, and have been living a peaceful life. Even though I had to part with Sam, who was so kind to me because I divorced David, I felt a bit sad. But I need to move on quickly and live my own life. The best life that David and my mother-in-law could ever envy. With that promise in my heart, I started my new life. We have a family of 6. Can we be seated? I think you know this, but you're not family. Could you leave now? The number of people the daughter-in-law mentioned didn't match the number of people actually present. We were supposed to be a party of 7. She deliberately left me out when speaking to the waitstaff. The waitstaff looked confused after hearing her words. Even I didn't know what to do. Amid the awkward tension, my daughter-in-law's mom urged me to leave, saying I wasn't family. I had no choice but to leave. Why did this happen when all I wanted was to get along as a family? What on earth did I do? What did I do to deserve this? I didn't know what had upset them, but it seemed someone couldn't tolerate their behavior. My name is Emily, a 60-year-old housewife. I lived with my husband. Our son Liam got married, and we were looking forward to a peaceful retirement. Liam's wife, Grace, is a difficult person. She even refused to let us see our grandchild when they had one. Liam managed to persuade her, and I saw my grandchild, who looked just like Liam, just once. I was smitten at first sight. When I reached out to hold my newborn grandchild, Grace shouted, "Stop! Don't touch the baby!" She snatched the baby away from me. Liam tried to reason with her, but she insisted, "You don't understand how scared I am of your mother." She never apologized. From that point, my relationship with Grace worsened, and Liam stopped coming home as much. It was sad not to see Liam and my grandchild, but I didn't want to risk another big fight. So I didn't push them and hoped to see them someday. Then one day, Liam invited us to dinner. Apparently, Harper knew someone who owned an expensive restaurant, and they thought it would be nice to bring the family. "Don't worry about us. Grace will feel uncomfortable if I'm there."
Don't say that. We rarely get to go to an expensive restaurant. Let us spoil you this time.
I was concerned about Grace, but Liam insisted it was a good opportunity to strengthen our relationship, so I agreed. I had no idea this dinner would change my relationship with Grace so much. Days later, on the day Liam had set, we arrived early at the restaurant. Time passed, but Liam and his family didn't show up. We thought they might be late because of the grandchild, so we waited patiently. I talked about this with my husband as I waited for them to arrive. But even after 1 hour, then 2, there was no sign of them. I sent multiple messages to Liam's phone, but got no reply. After waiting for about 4 hours, we decided it was time to leave and sent Liam one last message. Late that night, Liam finally called.
"Sorry, Mom. My phone was in for repairs."
As soon as I answered the phone, Liam apologizes in a flustered tone. Still, not showing up at the agreed place is strange, no matter how you look at it. I tell Liam about what happened today and decide to ask for details. Then Liam tilts his head, saying,
"Huh? The date for the dinner changed, actually."
"What do you mean?" According to Liam, the dinner date had to be changed due to various scheduling conflicts. Grace was in charge of the arrangements and was supposed to inform each household once the new date was set. And just this morning, as if planned, Grace spilled a drink on Liam's phone. The phone wouldn't even turn on, so he had to rush to a smartphone repair shop. He just got it back. During that time, Liam couldn't check his phone, so he had no way of knowing about my multiple messages.
"It's totally our fault. I'm really sorry."
Liam apologizes repeatedly on the other end of the phone. But it's not Liam's fault. The one to blame is Grace, who didn't correct the wrong date. "Don't apologize. It's not your fault." Upon hearing my words, Liam apologizes again and tells me the newly arranged date.
"You don't have to come if you're upset. I'll talk to my wife."
"Thank you. I'll go since it's a special occasion." When I say that, Liam lets out a sigh of relief. I suspected today's events were orchestrated by Grace. She intentionally left the wrong date and broke Liam's phone to inconvenience us. I've been concerned about Grace's behavior for a while now, but this is crossing a line. I felt that something had to be done. But things moved faster than I thought. A few days later, on the newly arranged date, I wait in front of the agreed restaurant. Liam's family and Grace's parents arrive. "Ah, Miss Emily, it's been a while. How have you been?" Grace's mom, Harper, greets me. "I'm fine, thank you. How about you?" "We're doing great. My daughters often bring the grandchildren to visit," she says, boasting. Truth be told, I've never liked Harper. Ever since the meeting of both families before Liam's marriage, Harper has been hostile and aggressive towards me. She makes snide comments about her daughter cooking dinner or going on a trip soon. Words that can only be taken as insults from someone like me, who is disliked by Grace and rarely sees her. I suspect that Grace and Harper are collaborating to make me feel down. So I was prepared for something unpleasant to happen at today's dinner. "By the way, Miss Emily, do you know where we're going today?" Yes, we're going to that expensive restaurant, right? Oh, interesting. As she says this, Harper looks me up and down. Wondering if something was off, she says. I apologize, you just don't look dressed for such a high-end place. And laughs. I thought I had prepared well for today. I even made sure to dress appropriately. So Harper's comment about my outfit was hard to swallow. I thought something understated would be best for a classy restaurant. I say this with a wry smile, and Harper nods. I suppose, before walking over to talk to Grace. The atmosphere between us is already icy before we even enter the restaurant. Feeling uneasy, I decide to go in when Liam calls me over. As we enter, the waitstaff greets us. Welcome. Grace steps forward and tells the waitstaff about the reservation, who then asks, How many in your party? We're a family of 6. Could you please show us to our table? I find this puzzling and look around. My husband, Liam, Grace, our grandchild, Grace's parents, and me. That's 7 people, not 6. It's not 6, it's 7. I try to correct Grace, but Harper interjects. You know you're not family. Could you please leave? What? I'm stunned by Harper's words. Why am I the only one not considered family? What have I done? Why would you say something so cruel? I'm family too, aren't I? Can you stop it, mother-in-law? We're tired of pretending you're family when you don't even consider us. My daughter is hurt because of you, and you want to hurt her more? You really can't think of others, can you? I'm left speechless by the harsh words from Grace and Harper. Liam tries to intervene, but Grace shouts, You stay out of this. And he falls silent. Fine, I'll leave. I say this and exit the restaurant as if fleeing. The waitstaff tries to stop me, but I'm beyond caring. Why am I the only one being treated this way? Why am I the only one being targeted? What have I done? I couldn't agree with Grace and Harper's attitude, but I didn't want to cause a scene, so I left. I hope they regret treating me this way. If they ever need help, I won't be there for them. With that resolve, I head home. I had no idea that the day would turn out like this. As I walk home, my phone rings. It's Grace. I'm not in the mood to talk to her, so I ignore it. Then my message notifications start pinging loudly. Mother-in-law, where are you? Please come back. Answer the phone. Hurry. The urgency is palpable in each message. Curious, I decide to answer Grace's call. Mother-in-law, thank God you answered. Where are you? Please come back to the restaurant right away. I'm on my way home. Why should I come back? You're the ones who kicked me out. Actually, Grace hesitates before explaining. To summarize, it turns out someone I know was at the restaurant. They saw me and wanted to say hello, but witnessed the harassment from Grace and Harper at the entrance. After I left, they confronted the two of them. Please go back and explain to him that it wasn't harassment, Grace pleads. The man I know is still at the restaurant's entrance, apparently very angry and scolding both of them. I can hear his angry voice over the phone. All right, I'll come back, I say, and Grace lets out a sigh of relief. But I'm not going back for her or Harper. I can't let my acquaintance continue to make a scene. I retrace my steps and hurry back to the restaurant. As I arrive, I hear the man's raised voice. His anger hasn't subsided. When he sees me, he quickly shouts, Miss Emily, I'm sorry for causing a scene, but I couldn't stand their attitude towards you. There's no one as respectable as you, Miss Emily. Mr. Daniel, you're exaggerating. I'm not that special. What are you talking about? My company owes its success to you. He calms down and talks to me like he always does. Just as we're getting into our usual conversation, Grace interrupts. Mother-in-law, how do you know this man? You seem very close, even though my father is here. Are you having an affair or something? Harper joins in, laughing mockingly. My acquaintance's face tightens with anger again.
Miss Emily is my benefactor,
He says and starts to explain. He's actually the CEO of a well-known corporation. We were friends in college. He was a shy, introverted person back then. I couldn't stand to see him so uncomfortable, so I reached out. We became close friends. He had a dream of starting a company. However, the reality is that once you start a business, things don't go well. But when he tried, he faced financial difficulties. I lent him a small amount of money, something a housewife could afford. Even though it was just that, he cried and thanked me, saying,
I'll definitely repay you someday.
He thanked me tearfully and promised to repay the favor. And he did, turning his company into a major success.
I'm eternally grateful to Miss Emily,
He says, making me a bit embarrassed. But Grace and Harper turn red with anger. That's so unfair. Why does mother-in-law get all the good things? I've worked much harder.
Yeah, it's not fair. If we knew you were like this, we wouldn't have treated you this way.
Grace and Harper start making a scene, shouting loudly. Seeing this, Grace's dad, my husband, and Liam are taken aback. This is all on them. If they had behaved better, none of this would have happened.
Your hearts aren't as pure as Miss Emily's. If you're jealous, reflect on your own actions first,
Mr. Daniel says. Even then, Grace and Harper start causing a ruckus right at the restaurant entrance.
Enough is enough.
The one who shouts at them is Liam.
How dare you treat someone's mother like this? I never thought you two could be so awful. I'm disappointed. Please just go home.
At Liam's words, Grace and Harper turned pale. Liam, calm down. Why are you saying such terrible things? Grace tries to cozy up to Liam, but he shakes her off. He turns to my husband and me and says,
Let's go.
We leave the restaurant, ignoring Grace's shouts of, Wait! Later, we enjoy a peaceful family dinner at a familiar restaurant we've always loved. After that, Liam and Grace end up getting divorced. I heard that Liam had been having doubts about Grace and Harper's attitudes for a while. Their cold behavior towards me. But he was afraid it might be a misunderstanding and kept watching. That incident made him decide to divorce. Since Grace had always been passive about parenting, Liam got custody. I also heard that Harper was asked for a divorce after that day. Grace was kicked out of the house, and now they're living in a small apartment, struggling to make ends meet. Apparently, Harper had to go to work day and night to pay compensation for the divorce case, and despite her age, she was living a very difficult life. On the other hand, Grace seems to have gone crazy after that incident and is just having fun, not thinking about Harper's hardships. Their lives falling apart seems inevitable. As for me, life has been peaceful since then. Raising a grandchild alone is tough for Liam, so they moved in with us, and we help take care of our adorable grandchild. I want to live happily ever after with my cute grandchild, Liam, and my husband.
How much longer do you have? Feelings for me have cooled. How could he say something like that to his wife? I was more than angry and shocked. I was disgusted. What? You're the one who doesn't have long to live. What? Hi, my name is Sarah. I believe that aging gracefully is a timeless theme for both men and women. I am now 60 years old, but I still try to dress younger. It's not for my husband. When I look in the mirror and see that my hair, makeup, and clothes look nice, I get excited. People are surprised when I tell them I'm 60, and I'm relieved when they tell me I don't look it. My husband and I have drifted apart, and I'm left wondering why I married someone like him. I work hard in a comic book editor's editorial department. My husband is against me working, despite the fact that I don't make much money. When I look at my husband, who says with a nonchalant expression that men hunt and women do housework, I can only sigh. I'm wondering if we've gone back to the Middle Ages, or maybe even the Stone Age since he calls it hunting. I'd like to tell him that even in the animal kingdom, the lioness hunts. I enjoy advising young aspiring cartoonists with big dreams and working with them to create appealing characters and interesting stories. 60-somethings today are young. I believe the days of just relaxing at home after the age of 60 are over. My husband, on the other hand, was unique. How long will you keep working? You're 60 now. Women over 60 are useless. I was irritated, but my husband would never back down, so I was the one who did. Your opinions are so outdated, I said. I will not forgive you if you neglect your housework because of your job. Has my husband, who believes that housework is solely the responsibility of wives, not seen the news? He looks down on women, but also has a weakness for beautiful young women, which is the worst pattern in some ways. I finished college and got this job. I dreamt of becoming a cartoonist since high school, but I gave up because I'm not good at drawing. So I decided I wanted to help people who were pursuing their dreams. I was so busy with work that I forgot I had turned 40. My relatives approached me about an arranged marriage proposal, and I fantasized about being married. Marriage is an important event in life and should never be rushed. However, I was so impatient, and I thought that I would be single for the rest of my life if I missed this opportunity. I agreed to the matchmaking proposal and married my current husband, who was 41 years old. My husband was hiding his fangs and acting like a gentleman at the time, so I couldn't see his true nature. We didn't have children because we were both over 40, and I had no intention of quitting my job. My parents are in their 80s, but unlike my husband, they seem to be aware of the times and never asked me to have their grandchildren. Many women want to have children but are unable to do so. Why don't you have children yet? They would never say something like that. My parents know that's hurtful. Recently, my husband has been looking at his phone and sneaking around a lot. I thought maybe he was cheating on me, but the fact that I didn't feel angry shows that my feelings for him have completely faded. My mother-in-law, who lives nearby, paid us a visit one day. My father-in-law died 3 years ago, and my mother-in-law now lives alone. She is 85 years old, but she has always been stubborn, and my husband can't get enough of her. It's not because he respects her so much, but because she is wealthy. She has about $200,000 in savings. Because I'm an only child, I'll get her property. I hope she dies soon. Stingy woman. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. There are some things you cannot say. If I don't be nice to her now, even if it is a lie, it'll be bad for me if she leaves all the money to an institution or something else. My mother-in-law walked in from the next room at that exact moment. I'm sorry for being so stingy. Oh, Mom. With an ogre-like expression on his face, my husband turned pale and took it out on me. Why didn't you tell me she was here first, you idiot? Stop talking. Don't yell at her all the time. You're annoying the neighbors. My husband turned his head down without saying anything because there was no excuse. How long have you and Kevin not been getting along? My mother-in-law asked while he was running away to take a bath. When did you and your husband stop getting along? It doesn't feel like a bad cold, but rather like a serious illness. You can tell? I said with an awkward smile. Sarah, if you can't take it anymore, you can get a divorce. Having grudges and having so much hatred is no way to live. The agony of having to be with someone you don't want to be with is unbearable. It must be difficult to live with people you dislike. You don't have to be scared of me. My mother-in-law's generosity warmed my heart. She was so knowledgeable and well-educated that it was difficult to believe they were blood relatives. My husband had to have traveled in time from the Stone Age. He took a physical examination at work again this year, but he seems to have failed. I'm curious if his inactivity, combined with his age, has taken its toll on him. He always comes home late, many times drunk. My husband claims to have had a drink with his colleagues at a bar, but I know he goes to a strip club. It's a wife's intuition. Kevin was retested, and I received a call from the hospital one day. Before I tell you in person, there is something I'd like to discuss with your family. It sounded like a scene from a TV show, and I felt a flutter in my chest. I was surprised to hear what the doctor said at the hospital. Only 6 months to live? When my husband was told he only had 6 months to live, I was a whirlwind of emotions. I was surprised that I wasn't shocked, but almost relieved. I felt guilty for my lack of empathy. I asked myself if a normal wife would be able to hide her disbelief, learning her husband only had 6 months left. It must be a mistake. You need to be prepared. Whether or not you tell him is up to you. His character, you know him best. What exactly do you mean by character? It is risky to tell him immediately if he has a negative personality. It may be better to tell him if he has a positive, strong personality. He will understandably become desperate if he learns he only has 6 months to live. He doesn't know, but he should refrain from going to strip clubs and drinking alcohol. I returned home with a gloomy feeling, but I decided that I should still tell him. I told my husband when he got home. Honey, I have something important to tell you. What is it? Unlike you, I'm busy. I'm also very busy. Aren't you just keeping yourself busy? Quit your job if you don't like being busy. A man making his wife work is not a good look. It makes me look like I don't earn enough money. I had no idea what he was talking about and was intimidated by his old-fashioned opinion. He doesn't seem to realize that most families nowadays have 2 incomes and that full-time housewives are rare. Today, I went to the hospital. What about the hospital? I want you to brace yourself. Hurry up, I'm busy. I was so enraged that I said it out loud. The doctor told me you only had 6 months to live. My husband kept a straight face for a few seconds before laughing. I rushed to cover my mouth with my hand. Only 6 months to live? Yes, I said, attempting to calm myself. Don't panic. Don't be arrogant. I could tell he was shocked because he was speaking strangely. Well, I guess I deserved it. Maybe I'm too rough on my body. I was surprised that he knew his actions caused this. So you better cut back on your drinking from now on. Shut up. Drinking is part of the job. Women have a bad habit of thinking it's just for fun because we've had a drink. I'm going to continue drinking. You shouldn't. Come home right after work. My husband smiled big. Wait, you're not going to tell me that you want more time together because I only have 6 months to live, are you? I would never dream of it, but I was forced to play the good wife. Of course I do. I'd like to spend more time with you. Don't be a fool. I don't have that much time. Honey. I was about to say something significant when he cut me off. All right, this conversation is over. That's all there is to it. Time is money, and I'm squandering it with you. How could he say something so hurtful without hesitation? But I didn't say anything else. I went into my husband's study to check on him, concerned that he might be depressed. I could hear him talking to someone else. My wife was told at the hospital today that she only has 6 months to live. I didn't ask her what it was, but 6 months. It had to be some sort of terminal cancer. I didn't understand what my husband was saying at first. 6 months, he said. My mother is 85 years old and has life insurance, and she'll be gone soon. Amy, come live with me after she dies. I'd like to restart my life. I was taken aback. My husband has made a terrible mistake. But my rage reached a boiling point when I overheard his conversation with Amy. I just couldn't bring myself to say the truth. He was messing with me. I can't stand hearing him talk about his mother like that. I care about her. You'll see things your own way your whole life, even if it is only 6 months. My husband didn't come home late. He didn't come home at all after I told him about his life expectancy. Sometimes he lies and says he's on a business trip. I'm shocked. He wears flashy clothes, buys expensive watches, and seems to spend tons of money every day. He also buys a lot of gifts. My husband doesn't have much money. Is he counting on the money from my insurance after I die? He is being less than human. It's been 3 months since I was told he only had a few months to live. Is there something wrong with your body? I asked my pale husband. Recently, I've been feeling tired and sluggish. Just going up the stairs at the station makes me out of breath. I think you should drink less. Shut up, I'm telling you, drinking is a necessary part of my job. Go to hell if all you have to say is depressing things. I was irritated, but I chose not to argue. You're such a nag. You and that old hag can go to hell. My mother-in-law was standing directly behind my husband. You mean me, the old hag? She said. Oh, you scared me. Are you talking about me? I've never referred to you as an old hag. I was talking about my boss. Oh, really? My mother-in-law looked at him suspiciously, so he lowered his head. My husband left without saying anything. 4 months have passed since he was told he only had a few months to live. My husband began coughing more often, missing work more frequently, and his blood pressure was low, when he usually had high blood pressure. His low blood pressure made him dizzy, and he almost fell down a flight of stairs. He still continued to travel for business. He spends his last day with his mistress, not his wife. He only has a few months to live, and he's busy cheating on his wife. He claims that his hands and feet are cold, and that he's aching all over, even on hot days. If you're not feeling well, you should probably refuse to go on business trips. Mind your own business. I'm not the only one looking forward to the business trip. They need me there. I can call the company and ask your boss to excuse you from the business trip. As expected, my husband was furious and yelled at me. Try it. I'm not going to let you get away with it. I made an effort not to laugh. I felt sorry for my husband, who deserved it, but I was unsure whether I should tell my mother-in-law the truth. She has always been very kind to me since the wedding. Then I had an unexpected visitor. I had never seen a young woman like her before. What is your name? Hey, I'm Amy. It's nice to meet you. I was taken aback by her bold visit to my home. I'll just be direct. Please let Kevin leave. What exactly do you mean by let him leave? I was shocked. Even I can see that Amy is incredibly beautiful and dainty with a great fashion sense. I couldn't understand why such a beautiful woman was dating my husband. He is not wealthy, so she's not with him for money. But it can't possibly be pure love, can it? It's gotta be a scam. Kevin is in pain. I think it's stress. Please divorce him. I laughed at her audacity. This is insane to say things like that openly to his wife. She, on the other hand, was unfazed. You only have one life. It's foolish to be tied down by marriage these days. I realized something. I ended the conversation with a smile because I knew if I talked to her anymore, I might lose my temper and put my hands on her. I'm not worried about that. I'm not sure if he'll go to heaven or hell because I'm not the devil. She gave me a brief look before smiling brightly. The devil, huh? You're funny, ma'am. I'm not trying to be funny. How old are you? 29. I couldn't believe it. 29? She's more than 30 years younger than me. What do you do for a living? He came to see me at work. He's very nice. Why would you date him? Kevin is tough and competent. Stop. I smiled as I looked at her. If you keep talking, I'll strangle you. It's not funny. Amy stared at me silently for a few seconds before saying, When I met you for the first time today, I was honestly surprised at how different my impression of you was. What did my husband say about me? Did he call me a witch? Amy burst out laughing. He never said anything negative about you. I just assumed you weren't this nice. I wasn't going to be flattered by her compliment, but I was starting to think maybe Amy wasn't such a bad person. I, of course, don't like his mistress, but if I were a man, I might get swept away by her kindness, too. There will be a time when your genuinity is questioned. Huh? Her head-tilting gesture is also adorable. Even though I don't feel bad for my husband because he is of the devil, I can't help but feel sorry for this girl. 6 months have passed since I was told he only had a few months to live. My husband, who has a pale complexion, took another day off today. But when he saw my cheerful face when he came home from work, he sneered. How long do you think you'll live? I was wondering how he could say this to his wife, no matter how much his feelings for her had cooled. I remained calm and kept my composure. You and the old lady are relentless. Say what you want about me, but don't talk about your mother. My husband got mad and yelled. Don't worry, you don't have much time left on Earth anyway. So, before you die, let me tell you what I really think. I believe marrying you was the worst mistake of my life. Words he should have never said. My husband had finally gone too far. Is that a will? I asked, fuming. A will? Wait, you didn't make some strange will, did you? You made a will? It's been 6 months since I was told what the life expectancy was. What are you even talking about? Have you finally gone insane? I was furious and completely shocked. What? It's your life expectancy. What? My husband stiffened and kept a straight face for a moment, but then he scoffed. You're not making sense. You've lost it. You need to go to the hospital. Kevin walked into his study. He passed out in the house the next morning. I immediately called an ambulance, called my mother-in-law, and went to the hospital. When the exam was finished and my husband found out the truth, he blew up and yelled at me in front of the doctors and nurses. Why didn't you tell me this? I warned you, it was 6 months ago. Don't lie to me, that was about you. My husband was taken aback when he remembered our conversation 6 months earlier. I didn't tell him who had been told about their life expectancy at the time. You're the devil. Please be quiet, this is a hospital. You should stay out of it. You both are in on it. He pointed at the doctor and the nurse. It was a mess and my husband was going crazy. Enough! If I stay here, I'll be killed. You're talking too much. Shut up! Shut up! I don't believe you! My husband escaped the hospital room, despite the nurse's efforts to stop him. I had no intention of stopping him. I went home after apologizing to the nurses and doctors on behalf of Kevin. My husband returned home a few days later, pale-faced. When I told Amy the truth, she told me that she had told him to leave me alone. I looked at Amy's expression and knew it might be true. I would have preferred her to have just told me he was leaving me, but Amy was married. It's not uncommon for strippers to lie about being single. Amy's husband had recently been released from prison. When Amy's husband discovered she was cheating on him, he choked her and she told him about my husband. Help me! They're threatening to drown me alive! How can I save you from such a terrifying man? How can you be so calm when your husband is in danger? How can he say that? Should you go abroad? I don't have any money. I found out he had spent all of his savings and was planning to get by on the insurance money coming in. It's not a surprise that he blew so much money so fast. He always went on business trips. Or really, traveled with Amy and probably paid for everything. Could you please give me some money? I don't have any. I dismissed him. Please borrow it from Mom. She won't lend it to me if I ask. She's a stingy old lady. Why don't you ask your boss? Oh no. My husband glared at me, startled and flustered like a cartoon character. I told you, let me know ahead of time if you were coming over. Is it on purpose? They only gave you 6 months to live, and that was 6 months ago. You'll be gone soon, right? My husband and I were both shocked at his mom's cold-blooded comment. You'd say that to your own son? How many times have you said that to your mother? My husband was unable to respond. Kevin, please apologize to Sarah. Then we can discuss it. This is my house. Get the hell out of here. I don't want to see your face. Let's go, Sarah. What? You've let me down. I'm cutting ties and will be living with my daughter. Daughter? Kevin is an only child. When I looked surprised to hear my mother-in-law had a secret child, she said, Sarah is my daughter. Do you have a problem with that? Wow. My husband rolled his eyes. I was about to cry, but I managed to keep it together. My husband and mother-in-law are blood. We wouldn't be family if I divorced my husband. But my mother-in-law still claims me as her daughter. She has shown me this since the day we got married. She loved me like I was her own daughter. Her love was genuine. My husband, who had lost his color, fixed his gaze on his mother. What are you talking about? Your only son or your daughter-in-law? I don't have to tell you which one is more important. Of course I would choose Sarah. I don't claim a child who cheats on his wife with no remorse. In disbelief of his mother's words, my husband walked into his study, silent. I quickly packed my things and moved in with my mother-in-law. Fortunately, I was working, and my mother-in-law had savings. As she advised, I divorced Kevin and cut him off. I wonder if he will be okay, even though he deserves it. Which will kill him first, the goons or sickness? But I'm really concerned about Amy. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. Marriage is a close relationship, and the most important part is love. If love fades, a marriage will end quickly. So, was this marriage a mistake? Well, I met my mother-in-law through it. We act like a real parent and daughter, and we live a happy life together. My parents were confused at first, but when I told them about the ordeal, they understood. I am content. Happiness is not something you can get from others. You have to find it yourself. Men swear to their fiancé's parents that they will make their daughter happy. I will do everything to make her happy. But I don't expect men to make me happy. We are the source of our own happiness. The possibilities are endless.
Can you even handle being with a crying baby?
It was the night I came back home after giving birth at my parents' house, and my husband dropped this bomb on me. In my arms, our newborn daughter Amelia was crying. She's just been born, it's natural for her to cry.
I don't care.
Originally, I planned to stay at my parents' house until Amelia and I were both stable. However, my husband said,
Come home already.
So we came back. Now, because of his shouting, Amelia's crying escalated.
You two sleep in the kitchen.
She'll catch a cold. He insisted on this absurdity because the kitchen was the furthest room from the bedroom.
How about you take responsibility? If I get sick from sleep deprivation, I have work tomorrow, so just go to the kitchen.
Realizing that arguing was futile, I took Amelia and left the bedroom. As I left, I heard him say,
Who do you think is feeding you?
And couldn't help but shed tears from humiliation. My name is Sophia, and I'm 27 years old. I married Oliver after a year-long workplace romance. He's a sales ace, handling even the toughest deals with grit and calculated strategy. I still remember feeling reassured by his demeanor. In the early days of our marriage, Oliver was somewhat henpecked, but our life was mostly harmonious. That all changed when I became pregnant. He stopped doing household chores altogether. When I complained, he coldly retorted,
We're living on my income, so it's only natural.
This was something I couldn't have imagined coming from Oliver before. Well, that may be true, but Oliver told me to focus on raising the child after getting pregnant, and I had to quit my job. I had no income, but that didn't mean I was willing to do all the housework. Just as I was about to speak up, he cut me off.
Before you say anything, take a look at this.
With a smug smile, Oliver showed me a divorce paper with his name on it. I was stunned and impulsively grabbed the paper in front of me. What the heck is this?
It's as you see. No income, no housework. Then, divorce is the obvious next step.
Taking a moment to think, I replied in a shaky voice, I'll handle all the housework.
You should have said that from the start.
The thought of our unborn child made divorce absolutely out of the question. Oliver knew that, which is why he brain-dished the divorce papers at me. Frustrated, I bit my lip hard. From that day on, our lives changed dramatically. Any slight grievance and Oliver would wave the divorce papers in my face. I had no choice but to go along with whatever he said. His assertiveness and cunning at work turned out to be disastrous in our home life. Despite being treated like a maid, our baby was growing healthily, and the due date was just a month away. Can I go back to my parents' house a week before the due date? I couldn't imagine Oliver being any support during my childbirth. That's why I wanted to give birth at my mom's place.
Sure, go ahead, but I'll keep these.
He snatched my credit and ATM cards from my wallet.
I have to eat out since you're not doing the chores. You are covering the costs. No complaints, right?
in our account was the savings we agreed not to touch until the baby was born. I wanted to snatch back the cards right away, but I held back. If I refused now, Oliver wouldn't allow me to go back home. Weighing the loss of our savings against the fear of giving birth alone, I reluctantly nodded. Giving birth alone was just too frightening for me. A week later, I checked into a hospital near my parents' home. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. I named her Amelia because Oliver said I could choose the name. My mom was enamored by Amelia and cuddled her constantly, making me feel a little awkward yet warm inside. After getting discharged, I temporarily returned to my parents' home. I had planned to rest at my mom's place for about a week to recover after giving birth. But when I got home, I had a call from Oliver who hadn't contacted me once while I was in the hospital.
Where the hell are you? I called the hospital because you hadn't come home and they said you were discharged.
I am at my mom's place. I'll be back in about 5 days.
Get back here now. How long are you planning to slack off from cooking, cleaning, and laundry?
I had just given birth. I was in no condition to handle chores. I tried to explain this to Oliver, but he wouldn't listen. Finally, he sent me a photo of divorce papers, so I reluctantly prepared to go back. You're leaving already? Yes. My husband wants to see Amelia as soon as possible. My dad passed away early and my mom raised me by herself. I didn't want her to worry, so I lied. All right, then say hi to your husband for me. Will do. Perhaps, picking up on my guilt for lying to Mom and my anxieties about my impending marital life, Amelia began to fuzz in my arms. When I got back to Oliver's place, the house was a mess. He had clearly done zero housework.
Don't just stand there, start cleaning.
No words of appreciation for me or any interest in Amelia from my husband. I thought things might change once we had a kid. That faint hope vanished instantly. Feeling the emptiness inside me, I started cleaning. Housework took a long time in my still recovering state, and by the time I got to the bedroom, Oliver was already asleep. I quietly put Amelia in the crib, but she wouldn't settle down. In fact, she started crying all of a sudden.
Keep it down.
Annoyed, Oliver shouted from his sleep. I tried to soothe Amelia quickly, but she wouldn't calm down.
Hey, make her stop crying already.
She was just born. It can't be helped. Oliver's yelling only made Amelia's cries worse.
That's it. Both of you go sleep in the kitchen.
She'll catch a cold. He had chosen the kitchen the furthest spot from the bedroom, but it was cold since it was near the entrance.
If I get sick from lack of sleep, how are you gonna take responsibility? I have work tomorrow. Now go to the kitchen.
Realizing that further conversation would be useless, I took Amelia and left the bedroom. As I left, I heard Oliver yell,
Who do you think is providing for you?
I couldn't find the words to respond and tears flowed. A week had passed since I started living in the kitchen. Juggling childcare and household chores had brought me to my limits and I constantly felt sluggish. One day, feeling exceptionally fatigued, I took my temperature and found it was over 102.2 degrees Fahrenheit. I urgently called my husband at work. Hey, I've got a high fever. I'm sorry, but is there any way you could leave work early?
What? You think I can just do that?
I just need you to look after Amelia while I go to the hospital.
Out of the question. You gave birth to her, you raise her. Plus, I don't want to catch whatever you got. I'm staying out tonight and you are paying for the hotel.
Oliver hangs up, mocking me as he does so. What do I do? What do I do? I can't master the energy to take action. I'm consumed by anxiety. Slowly, my thoughts become fuzzy and my vision starts to darken from the edges. Just before I lose consciousness, I hear Amelia crying. I'm sorry for being such a useless mom. I mumble in my heart. When I come to, I'm lying on my bedroom bed. My mom is next to me looking worried. What happened? That's what I would like to know. You weren't answering any of my calls. I came to check on you and found you collapsed in the kitchen running a fever. I was shocked. My mom says this in a business suit. It's a 3-hour drive from her home to mine. It's not a short distance, but she came as soon as her work was done. A sense of relief and shame brings tears to my eyes. What happened? Mom looks surprised at my tears, but quickly offers me a kind smile. I reached the breaking point of days of tension and I burst into tears telling her everything about my marriage so far. By the time I finish, I'm calm.
You should leave him. For your sake and for Amelia's.
Mom advises. Amelia sleeps peacefully in Mom's arms. I have made up my mind about what to do. The next day, I'm feeling much better. Oliver was supposed to come back home instead of staying out, so Mom and I wait for him to return. Past 8 p.m., we hear the front door open and Oliver's voice saying,
"Anyone still alive?"
Mom probably thought his words were insensitive. She frowns and looks unhappy. Oliver comes into the living room and sees Mom. He starts to say something, but I cut him off. I have filed for divorce.
What?
I continue to speak to Oliver, who's standing there with his mouth agape, clueless. The divorce papers have been accepted.
What? What are you doing making decisions like that?
Finally, Oliver seems to understand the situation. You were the one who handed me the divorce papers first, and I'm going to demand alimony as well.
You can't unilaterally divorce me and then demand alimony. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
I could see my husband Oliver thinking,
if I just act confident, she'll back down like she always does.
I can handle it. We'll be billing you $80,000, by the way. My mom spoke up out of the blue. Oliver was surprised for a second but then smirked dismissively.
$80,000 for a divorce retainer? No way. Oh, I get it. You're both just after my money because you think you can't survive without me, right? But sorry, I studied law in college. Your threats won't work on me. In fact, I'll be the one to get a retainer.
Oliver thought he had the upper hand and flashed an obnoxious grin. Why did I ever marry someone like this? I have no clue anymore. My mom is an attorney, I said.
What?
As if, to put the icing on the cake, my mom showed her attorney badge.
Is that real?
Oliver fumed at me.
You never told me your mom was an attorney.
I told you she works in a law firm. Oliver had apparently assumed my mom was just some secretary. As I spoke, he looked utterly baffled, like a fish out of water. We specialize in divorce cases, so we will certainly secure that $80,000, Mom said. We have plenty of evidence against you, too. Ever since I started feeling better, Mom and I had been gathering evidence. I laid it all out in front of Oliver, the bedding that proved we had been sleeping in the kitchen, insulting messages he sent via WhatsApp, divorce papers, and credit card statements. Finally, Oliver seemed to understand his situation. His face turned ashen.
This is all a joke, right? We can't be getting divorced.
I have been through too much for this to be a joke, I replied.
I'm really sorry. I didn't know you were so sick. Can we start over?
Oliver grabbed my hand. I almost pulled away but decided to look him straight in the eyes. He seemed hopeful. I forgot to mention, we will also be seeking child support, I said with a smile. His face looks like he was about to cry. Leaving him behind, Mom and I left the house with my daughter Amelia, who was now smiling instead of crying all the time. We eventually billed Oliver $90,000 for the divorce. While I was hospitalized, he had been gambling and wasting my savings, so we added another $10,000 to the bill. I had told the story to a former colleague, and it had spread throughout Oliver's company. Now he's socially isolated there. He's living frugally in an old, rundown apartment trying to save for the divorce and child support. Oliver once reached out, wanting to see our daughter. My answer was a solid no, followed by blocking his number. I never want to see him again. As for me, I live with my mom and daughter. We are so close, neighbors are jealous. On weekends, we all go to the park. Though Amelia is still young, I'll soon be working part-time at a law firm thanks to my mom's introduction. For Amelia, who's going to grow up and to give peace of mind to Mom, who will always be there to protect me, I want to work hard.
Acting all high and mighty over pocket change. Ugh. Those were the words thrown at me after I had arranged $30,000 for my eldest son and his wife's liver transplant. I couldn't believe she'd say something like this to me. And this was money they'd asked to borrow. The wife of the man getting the surgery seemed to revel in my reaction, smirking at me after spitting out those awful words. My patience quickly reached its limit. If this is who they are, then spending my money on them? I took my money back and walked out of the hospital room. I am Keely, a housewife who just turned 72 this spring. My husband passed away 3 years ago, and I've been living alone since then. My son Nick is 43 this year. He's married, has his own family, and is financially independent. I'm living quietly alone in the countryside, relying on my late husband's pension. I'm used to the rural life, but sometimes it gets a little lonely at this age. I've asked Nick to visit when he has time, but he's often too busy with work to make it. I even suggested that just his wife Ellie could visit, but she's also busy, she says. Ellie doesn't work. She's a stay-at-home wife. I would think she has time, but every time I reach out, she claims to be busy. Recently, I found out that Ellie's busy is an outright lie. My eldest son and his wife live in an apartment about a 10-minute walk from Ellie's family home. Apparently, Ellie spends most of her days at her family home. I even heard from Nick that she often stays overnight there. As a mother, I really want her to take proper care of Nick, her husband. But that single thought feels like it could escalate into a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict. So I keep it to myself. Nick, you need to manage your wife better. I feel like Ellie has a bit of control over my son, and Nick is completely smitten with her. He seems to excuse everything she does. Even during New Year's, they don't visit, which makes me think Ellie is intentionally avoiding this place. I'm concerned, but I also don't want to stir up trouble between them. So I've decided to hold my tongue. At this time, I was still thinking that as long as I keep quiet, everything would be fine. This is how our distant relationship was, until a sudden event changed everything. I heard that Ellie got sick and had to be hospitalized. It turns out her condition is serious, and she needs surgery, according to Nick. Although I don't know much about the illness, she apparently needs a liver transplant. Hearing liver transplant, my voice left me. I can't help but worry about how hard it must be for Ellie. Liver transplants aren't only expensive, but they also require a donor. I'll visit her. Planning to visit her as soon as the next day, I told Nick. However, he quickly said, "You don't have to come." He explained that she had just been admitted and wasn't settled yet. Rather, there's something I want to ask you. Nick said that first. It's been a long time since my son asked me for a favor. I listened, wondering what it was, and it turned out to be about the surgical expenses. Apparently, the liver transplant surgery, post-op treatment, and hospitalization will cost close to $30,000. Sure, $30,000 is a lot of money. However, I know that my son earns a better-than-average salary. On top of that, they don't have children. I assumed they would have saved up that much by now. You can afford it, can't you? You guys don't have any savings? We just bought a new apartment, so our savings are depleted. He hesitates as he says it. I had no idea they had moved into a new apartment. I was shocked to learn about this for the first time today. It's unbelievable that they changed their address and didn't even tell me, their own mother. What? You moved? Bought an apartment? Why am I hearing about this now? What were you thinking? I couldn't help but raise my voice. My son quickly says, "We've been busy, and I meant to tell you." But I think he deliberately kept it from me. Maybe he thought I'd visit if he told me they bought a new place. I'm not feeling great about this. And yet, turning down my son's request is also difficult. I let out a small sigh. Will $30,000 cover it? I have a nest egg from when my husband was still alive, and my survivor benefits are more than enough for me to live on alone. It's enough. Sorry, Mom. All right, I'll bring it over this weekend. At my words, Nick visibly relaxes. He must have been really desperate, but I wonder why he didn't consult with Ellie's parents first, given that he's always hanging out there. My son might not have wanted to consult his in-laws. I have various thoughts, but for now, I want Ellie to recover after the surgery. That's all I was genuinely thinking. Although it might sound presumptuous, I was thinking, if this $30,000 saves Ellie... I went to see my son and his wife for the first time in a long time over the weekend. I thought it best to bring the money directly to the hospital where Ellie is staying, so I arranged to meet Nick there. Even after informing him that I had arrived at the hospital, Nick took a while to show up. I waited for about 15 minutes. "Did you bring it?" That was the first thing he said when he finally appeared. I thought there would be more to say, but I guess the situation was just that urgent. As I handed over the bag containing $30,000, Nick snatched it from my hands. Quickly confirming its contents, he said, "You can go home now." What? I was taken aback. His attitude, essentially telling me to leave after handing over the money, was irritating, even for me. Even if he's worried about Ellie's condition, this is no excuse for such rudeness. I guess my displeasure showed up on my face. Nick looked at me and clicked his tongue. "What's the big deal? We're going through a lot here. Don't expect anything in return." Nick looked at me and clicked his tongue, yelling at me out of nowhere. I'd never been yelled at by my son before. He was always such an obedient child. I stared at him in disbelief. Ever since Ellie became his wife, it feels like his personality has changed. The Nick glaring at me with an intense expression was someone I didn't recognize. What's with this attitude toward your mother? Although I thought it was embarrassing to have a family argument in the hospital lobby, this was something I couldn't overlook. If I didn't correct my son here, I felt it would lead to something terrible. But it seemed like my anger didn't affect Nick at all. He snickered and turned his back on me. I thought about chasing after him, but feeling his complete rejection, I lost the will to do so. There was nothing more I could do. I decided to leave and headed for the exit. Just then, a woman said to me, "Oh, it's been a long time." Seeing her face, I snapped back to reality. It was Ellie's mother, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. Hurriedly, I bowed and said, "It's been a while." She was probably here to visit someone in the town hospital. I told Ellie's mother, "I came to visit, but can't find the room." She cheerfully said, "Well then, let's go together." Despite her daughter being in the hospital, she remained incredibly upbeat. The room Ellie was in turned out to be a private room. Apparently, she had insisted on having a private room. I was even more surprised it was a special room. It seemed extravagant, considering they were complaining about not having enough for the transplant and treatment costs. I knocked, and right away, Nick's voice answered. When Ellie's mother opened the door, I saw my son and his wife smiling warmly. A smile they never showed me, but had for Ellie's mother, making my heart ache just a bit. Ellie, sitting up in bed, noticed me standing behind her mother right away. Immediately, a frown formed on her face. "Oh, so your mother-in-law is here too, huh?" The careless way she looked at me was like I was something unpleasant. There's a bag of cash on the bedside table, the one I just gave to Nick. $30,000 is a lot of money. Leaving it there like that almost makes me dizzy. "Mom, you're still here? Haven't you taken care of everything already?" Nick spoke to me with a tone that was almost spitting the words out. I don't understand why I'm being treated this way. Ellie's mother doesn't seem too bothered by Nick's attitude. She just smiles. I bumped into Ellie's mother. I was about to leave, but she invited me to visit. Ignoring Nick's rude behavior, I responded. I thought it best to pretend not to notice and let it go. Encouraged by Ellie's mother, I sit in the round chair and start asking Ellie about her health and how she's feeling. Ellie, reluctantly perhaps, but unable to mistreat me in front of her mother, explains her medical condition. Turns out they found a donor for her liver transplant rather quickly. It's a cousin of Ellie's, apparently. If the transplant is successful, she'll recover her health. Enough already. Can you leave? My son clearly can't stand me being here. His leg shakes in what seems like frustration or anger. His attitude is getting to me. Your wife is sick, you know. It's natural for me to be concerned. Why are you acting this way? I brought what you asked for all the way here. Don't you think you owe me at least a thank you? At my words, Nick's face turns red. Ellie snickers at me from her bed, as if making fun of me. Acting all high and mighty over chump change. It's a turnoff to be lectured like this. I'm stunned by the words hurled at me from Ellie. Nick really has changed. Ellie's mother being here doesn't matter to him anymore. Chump change? $30,000 is chump change to you? You too couldn't come up with it, could you? How dare you insult me? And that attitude. Can't you do something about it? It's just rude. I can't help but stand up from my chair. The eldest son and his wife show no signs of being fazed. What kind of people are they, really? It's beyond infuriating. It's baffling. Ellie's mother is just standing there, smiling and saying, "Oh dear." Maybe she's just clueless, but I think she's also a bit out of touch with reality. The eldest son and his wife continue to call me stingy and a penny pincher. If I just listen in silence, they'll say whatever they want, even digging up things from the past. I take a deep breath. I see. I get it. I was the one who was wrong. Nick stops hurling insults upon hearing my apology. However, his face still sports a smug, disdainful smile. Quickly, I reach behind Nick and grab the paper bag casually placed on the bedside table. It still contains the $30,000 I brought. Heavy to me, but clearly pocket change to them. Nick hastily tries to snatch the bag from me. Not anymore. But I've decided I can't hand it over. "What are you doing? Give it back! That's our money!" I glance at Nick, who's yelling at me, and carefully tuck the paper bag into my purse. Then I give them both a piercing look. Ellie, in her laid-back manner, says, "I can't have that surgery without that money, you know." At her words, Nick starts to panic. It really is clear she has the upper hand. Ellie's mother casually comments, "Well, that's a problem, isn't it? It's just money, right? Figure it out yourselves. Do you think I'm going to lend such a sum after being treated like this? I'm leaving." I declare to my son that I won't be lending the money. Ellie's mother then turns to my son, smiling. "What will you do? Your wife is in a tight spot." But her eyes aren't smiling. Nick's face pales in an instant. Seizing the moment, I rush out of the hospital room. I quickly jump into the elevator that had just arrived and make my way from the lobby to a taxi. I catch a glimpse of Nick running after me through the taxi's rearview mirror, but I don't care. Feeling utterly frustrated, I head back to my own home. Once home, I stare at the $30,000 I'd left on the table for a while. Then I replay today's events at the hospital in my head from start to finish. No matter how I look at it, I can't see where I went wrong. At one point, I even think about just blowing all of the $30,000 on some lavish spree. I decide to call my younger sister and her husband, who live nearby. "Hey, how about coming over for dinner tomorrow? Bring the grandkids and the nephews. I'm always alone here, so the more the merrier." My sister and her husband are thrilled at the invitation. They say they'll bring their son, his spouse, and the grandchildren. After hearing my sister's response, I quickly contact a high-end steak restaurant and a catering service. I apologize for the short notice and ask if they can accommodate. Both are more than happy to oblige. It's good to have a long-standing relationship with businesses that can be flexible when you need it. I've already requested kids' menus from the caterer, so the little ones can eat too. The next day is incredibly busy right from the morning. Thinking we'll need some sweets after dinner, I go out to buy cakes and donuts. While I'm at it, I also get gifts from my nephew's family and my sister's family, who frequently come to visit. And for my niece and nephew and sister and her husband, who always make time to visit. I prepared gifts for them as well. I buy gaming consoles for the kids, high-end fountain pens for my brother-in-law and nephew, and matching designer bags for my sister and my nephew's wife. Once everything is set, I feel like I really accomplished something. The whole ordeal with my son's liver transplant has completely slipped my mind. As I'm just waiting for everyone to arrive, I casually check my phone and see back-to-back calls from Nick and Ellie. I'm immediately annoyed, wondering what they could possibly want now. There are also text messages, so I check them. The first batch of texts are complaints about me not paying for the medical expenses. But as I read on, the messages turn into nothing but whining. By the end, they're downright begging. I sighed and called Nick on his cell phone. Surprisingly, he answered after just one ring. "Mom, why have you been ignoring my calls?" I was stunned to hear that as the first thing out of his mouth. "Really, Nick? You're the one who usually ignores my calls, you know." As we spoke, the events of yesterday flashed back into my mind, making it hard to contain my irritation. "When are you bringing me the $30,000? I'm in trouble here since you took it back yesterday." I was disappointed and saddened by my son's consistently aggressive attitude. I wondered when he'd changed so much from the sweet, considerate child he once was. While I remained silent, Nick started berating me again. By the second time, I found myself listening more calmly. Besides, the things Nick was saying sounded like childish complaints. All you do is call me stingy and say you're not fulfilling your role as a mother-in-law. None of it resonates with me. I felt indifferent just listening to him. I heard all that yesterday. Why don't you accept help from Ellie's parents instead? You're close with them, aren't you? Plus, Ellie isn't their biological daughter. I'm sure they'll help. I interrupted Nick's ongoing tirade. If I didn't, it seemed like it would never end. I was also becoming suspicious of Ellie's mother, who was just smiling in the hospital room yesterday. Think about my situation too. People will say I can't even afford my wife's treatment. You're the one who called it pocket change, right? And for the record, I used that money. There's hardly anything left. Nick was left speechless on the other end of the line. He reacted to the news that there was little money left. Why did he treat me like that when he's clearly desperate? I couldn't help but wonder. Just sort out the liver transplant fees on your own. Don't involve us. I made myself very clear. Please relay that to your wife as well. I cut off the call, feeling like I had just tossed out a parting shot. I didn't want my emotions to get the best of me. Even if he's rotten, he's still my son. As a parent, I want to help him. But his attitude yesterday was unforgivable. If both of them had apologized, maybe I would have reconsidered. But there was no apology at all. This makes it impossible to forgive them. Just after hanging up with Nick, I got a call from Ellie. I pick up the phone, ready to settle this once and for all. Mother-in-law, this is terrible. My life is on the line. Do you understand that? As soon as I pick up, her condescending tone irritates me. If her life is on the line, she should be more humble. I told Nick too. Instead of borrowing money from me, wouldn't it be simpler for your parents to help you out, Ellie? I tell Ellie the same thing I told Nick. Ellie scoffs at my suggestion. Seems like she really can't humble herself before others. Then she starts talking about how if I don't lend them $30,000, Nick will be in a bad position. Basically, she's saying she doesn't care if Nick becomes uncomfortable at her parents' house. Honestly, what she's saying almost feels like blackmail. Listen, Ellie, I'll make it clear today. I don't know why you're avoiding me. You didn't even tell us about moving to the new house, and you never visit. I don't feel like you're really part of our family. Ellie listens in silence. I don't want to say this, but can you really call yourself a daughter-in-law? You only reach out when it's convenient for you, and then you greet me with this disrespectful attitude. I don't want to hear your old-fashioned views on daughter-in-law and mother-in-law relationships right now. Just bring the money for the treatment, okay? Ellie has a short temper and gets very angry. She yelled at me over the phone. The angrier Ellie gets, the calmer I become. Raising your voice won't help. Besides, that money is already spent, and there's not much left. It may be pocket change to you, but it matters to me. Ellie gasps at the mention of the dwindling funds. I guess spouses do become alike when they spend a lot of time together. Then what should I do? We found a donor! All we need to do is make the payment! We're running out of time! Her last words were almost a scream. Hearing her, I felt no inclination to help. Figure it out yourselves. Ask your parents or something. They may lower their heads for you, even if I won't. I'll pray for a successful surgery from here. I hung up after saying that. Several more calls came in from both of them, but I ignored all. By evening, they seemed to give up, and the texts and calls ceased. Later, Ellie's father came to apologize to me. I was surprised by his sudden visit, but he was a sensible man, and apologized sincerely. After his apology, I agreed to lend the money for the treatment. Ellie and her mother seem to be extreme spendthrifts. Both spend money freely, while Nick is working non-stop. Lack of savings wasn't just due to the apartment purchase, it appears. They've promised to pay back the medical expenses gradually. They are also in debt to multiple other parties and seem to be in a tight spot. But the surgery was successful, so I'll wait for them to get back on their feet and pay me back. Their relationship as a married couple seems to be on the rocks due to money issues. They have shared debts and can't afford a divorce, so they continue to live separately within the same home. Nick informed me they will divorce once the debts are paid off. I've decided to do a major renovation on the house where I now live alone. The suggestion came from the nephew and his wife who had invited me to that lavish dinner that day. Since then, they have visited me like real sons would, and the house is lively with the sound of kids on the weekends. Living alone doesn't feel lonely anymore, and I believe the $30,000 I spent that day was well worth it.
My father-in-law just passed away. Can you come home as soon as possible? I got the call from my daughter-in-law Emilia while my son was taking a bath during a family visit. With an anxious tone, she informed me about my husband's death. Confused and shocked, I yelled into the phone. Wait a minute. My name is Janie. I am 51, and ever since the sudden loss of my husband, I've been raising our son Kobe as a single mom. Kobe, who was in high school at the time, has now graduated college and has been working for 3 years. After getting his job, he moved out and started living on his own. Now he's married and he and his wife help each other to make a good life. His wife Emilia is on the quiet side and is, according to Kobe, good at household chores, a good wife. However, from the first time we met, she seemed distant, like she wanted to keep space between us. I mentioned it to Kobe, but he just laughed it off, saying it was all in my head, but I couldn't shake off the feeling. Emilia seems like she'd prefer to avoid our home. She only shows up for Thanksgiving and leaves without spending the night, which only confirms my suspicion. Kobe is my only son, and I had always hoped to get along with his wife. I've even asked Emilia directly if there was something bothering her. Being as gentle as possible, I asked if I had done anything to make her uncomfortable. She simply replied, "No, nothing at all." I eventually gave up on getting close to Emilia, thinking it's just the way younger people feel nowadays. They don't want to mingle with their in-laws, even if they live separately. What's more, I sensed a similar distance with Emilia's own parents when we met for the first time at the wedding. I mentioned to them that my husband had passed away years ago, and it seemed to create even more of a gap. Even though Kobe had told them from the beginning that I was a single mom, maybe seeing it firsthand created some negative impression of me. So, I've decided not to intrude on Kobe's marriage and quietly observed the wedding. Since then, the gap hasn't closed between me, Emilia, and her family. Even though my son and his wife live relatively close, our family dynamics have become distant. Today, Kobe brought over some wedding photos, but of course, Emilia was nowhere to be seen. I feel grateful when I see Kobe, noticing my disappointment, offered to stay over tonight even though he's alone. Makes me proud to see how kind-hearted he's become. Looking at the picture of Emilia, I find myself smiling, thinking how pretty she looks when she's laughing next to Kobe. It's tough to suppress the loneliness when my own daughter-in-law avoids me for reasons I can't understand, even though we're still getting along. After carefully storing the photo and having dinner, I idly flip through a TV variety show. I'm waiting for Kobe to finish his shower when a familiar melody rings out. It's coming from Kobe's phone left on the table. It's the default ringtone. Curiously, I glance at the phone. It's a call from Emilia. I decide to let Kobe know about it later and turn back to the TV, but then the phone starts ringing again. Given the incessant calls, I think it might be urgent, but hesitate to answer it myself. I reluctantly grab the still ringing phone and head to the bathroom to tell Kobe. "Kobe, Emilia's calling. The phone's been ringing a few times now." I subtly hint for him to pick up, but Kobe brushes it off, saying it's fine. "Charge it for me, will ya? Got any snacks? I could go for a drink after my shower. I'll be out soon. Grab something quick." Well, you're really becoming like your dad, aren't you? Holding the phone, I head back to the living room and try to plug it in. But I fumble and accidentally hit the answer button. In my rush to hang up, I hit the speaker instead, and Amelia's frantic voice bursts out. Can you hear me? Dad has passed away. Come home as soon as possible. It looks like I've picked up a very serious call. What do I say to Amelia, who's just lost her dad? Or should I first apologize for answering her call, even if it was an accident? My mind is racing, and I've lost sight of the option to hang up. Meanwhile, Amelia starts explaining the situation, saying that I need to come over to the nursing home where he was living. Startled, I ask when he had moved into a nursing home, considering he was fine until recently. Huh? Mother-in-law? Amelia had no idea that it was me on the line. She thought she was talking to Kobe, so her surprise makes sense. I quickly explain the situation and steer the conversation back to her dad. But she corrects me, slightly annoyed. It's not my dad. She says it's Kobe's father who has passed away and asks me to tell him to call her back before trying to hang up. I was utterly confused, but quickly spoke into the phone, still on speaker mode. Wait a second, Amelia, isn't this some kind of mistake? Like I told you before, Kobe's dad passed away 8 years ago. Amelia seemed shocked by my statement. She stuttered momentarily but quickly regained her composure. Now is not the time for lies. Why would you lie about something so heartless at a time like this? Before I could make sense of Amelia's sudden accusation of me lying, the room fell silent. In that moment, I noticed that Kobe, his face pale, was holding the phone. The call had ended. He had likely rushed over after hearing our heated conversation while taking a shower. Water was still dripping from his hair. It was clear that he'd hurriedly grabbed the phone. I asked Kobe, who was deliberately avoiding eye contact with me, what was going on. What did Amelia mean when she said your father just passed away? I had made it clear to her before we got married that your father had passed. Why would she think otherwise? When I pressed Kobe, who was visibly uneasy, he dodged my questions, whether it was a misunderstanding on Amelia's part or someone who was like a father to him. It was clear he was hiding something. We'd been having a tense exchange for a while. Amidst this, Kobe's cell phone buzzed. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar name, but it looked like it was probably from a nursing home. While Kobe hesitated to pick up, knowing what to expect from the call, he eventually answered right in front of me. Trying to remain silent, I listened in. I could hear most of the conversation, and the caller indeed confirmed what Amelia had been saying. After ending the call, Kobe looked straight into my eyes and finally came clean, leaving me nearly faint. Apparently, he had introduced Amelia to a man unrelated to the family as his father. I told Amelia that Mom cheated and got divorced, he said. It seemed Kobe had completely fabricated the story for Amelia. According to this version, I had neglected my husband's suffering from early onset dementia, had an affair, and was the one who was served with divorce papers. But due to issues like alimony, I had dragged out the discussions. Eventually, taking advantage of the progression of my husband's condition, I forced him into a nursing home and pushed all the costs and responsibilities onto my son. After agreeing to the divorce, my ex-husband's dementia had already progressed to the point where the issue of compensation for the affair was swept under the rug. Kobe, who lied about our divorce to his parents-in-law, was careful not to show Amelia his marriage certificate when he submitted it. Listening to this story, my mouth was hanging open in disbelief. So, I told them Mom has been going around telling people Dad is dead. She's probably telling Amelia the same thing, but it's all lies, he explained. I can't believe he's been telling such elaborate lies. No wonder Amelia and my in-laws don't think highly of me. When I scolded Kobe for lying, he hung his head like a scolded child and mumbled that he wanted extra money for leisure. He thought he could lessen the amount he gives to Amelia by saying he was using it to pay for his father's care home. And shockingly, Kobe even aimed to inherit fake assets from another man. Kobe, who works as a caregiver, met a man with dementia who was a landlord when he went to assist at another facility. Although the man was not yet 70, he had multiple health issues and had entered the facility to receive end-of-life care. The man likely had early onset dementia and had deteriorated to the point where he didn't even recognize his real son. Kobe took advantage of this and started to act like he was the man's only son. On top of that, using his role as a caretaker, he had the man's real family pay for his residential fees. Meanwhile, he was also pocketing a few $100s every month as caregiving fees for doing small tasks. "All of you must be so busy. Don't worry, I'll take good care of him," he would say. Sometimes he'd even lie about the man's health to minimize family visits. Whenever he found the time, he would sit beside the man, even going so far as to have him write a will, leaving all his inheritance to Kobe. Kobe's manipulative ways gained him the trust of the facility, as he even told them that he had lost contact with his father since our divorce. The real family eventually stopped showing up, and even the facility staff started recognizing Kobe as a family member. Listening to this appalling truth coming from my son made me wonder if he really was my son. Now that the man had passed away, there wasn't much that could be done. I forced myself to tell a remorseful-looking Kobe to quickly inform the real family of the man's passing. Later, I took Kobe to apologize to the real family, and when they heard the truth, they were understandably furious. "We will sue you for fraud," they yelled. Kobe politely apologized and pleaded to avoid a lawsuit, saying they could nullify the will, but this only enraged the family even more. From the family's perspective, nullifying the will was a given. Nothing had been resolved, including the caregiving fees and the manipulation of the deceased. Kobe, who seemed to think a simple apology would suffice, was at a loss in the face of the family's blazing anger and clung to me, nearly in tears. "Going to court is impossible. Mom, you know it too, right? I don't have money to pay for damages. I've told you everything, help me. A mother always defends her child, doesn't she? I can't say I'm completely unaffected by the desperate plea from the son I've raised for over 20 years, but I have no intention of helping him. He's done something truly awful. I believe he needs to face the full wrath of the family and offer a sincere apology from the bottom of his heart. I apologized deeply, just like Kobe had, and all I could do was show my sorrow to the family as a parent. From that point on, Kobe's life spiraled downward. Emilia, who was his wife, filed for a quick divorce and returned to her parents' home. When faced with the prospect of divorce for lying so egregiously and swindling money from others, Kobe argued back. "I don't want to break up. The money was also for Emilia." When they expressed their wish for a swift divorce and even threatened legal action and financial claims, Kobe had no choice but to back down. He knew that he could be in legal trouble for what he'd done. Although no claims had yet been made, he was being sued by the family of the deceased man. Perhaps he realized that he wouldn't be able to handle additional claims from Emilia. Furthermore, Kobe got fired from his job. The company claimed he damaged their reputation and shattered their trust in caregivers. After the court's decision, Kobe was required to pay back the caregiving fees he had received, as well as compensation for the emotional suffering of the deceased man's family. The will left by the deceased man was invalidated, taking into account the progress of his dementia. Kobe, who had almost no savings and was already unemployed, was now burdened with massive payments, including legal fees. Choosing city life for better job prospects, he rented a small, old apartment. He's barely making ends meet through day labor, trying hard to continue payments. He had reached out to me for help multiple times. Each time, I told him I had already helped enough by co-signing his lease and urged him to reflect on his mistakes. Now, juggling multiple jobs and searching for better paying work, he doesn't even have the time to complain. As for me, I continue to live alone. However, Amelia and her parents graciously visited me to apologize. They said they were sorry for their ill-mannered behavior, which was based on a misunderstanding of me. But I knew it was all my son's fault. We left it at that, acknowledging the unresolved issues between us. Since there were no children and the divorce was finalized, I don't expect to meet Amelia again. However, we still exchange seasonal greetings through letters.